Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. As poultry owners in England are told to shut away their birds because of avian flu, a committee of cross-party MPs puts pressure on the government to do more to ensure the country is better prepared for a major animal disease outbreak.
Where it's particularly not ready is either through a very serious national disease outbreak, or indeed there were two concurrent diseases in different parts of the country.
We'll have more on that later. First, though, this morning, mapping the genome of crop plants has become, if not routine, then certainly not surprising. The wheat genome was mapped back in 2018. It had taken 13 years to complete. Well, now plant scientists from around the world have joined forces to sequence oats and have mapped the full chromosomal complement of 33 of the most common types. The work will help plant breeders develop more varieties suitable for different climates and foodstuffs. Dr. Catherine Howarth from the Institute of Biological, Environmental and Rural Sciences at Aberystwyth University has been working on the project.
Oats has a very complicated genome, and the research here in Aberystwyth covers everything from understanding the oat genome to breeding new varieties of oats that meet the demands of farmers and oat processors. And so to be able to breed new varieties of oats, we need to understand the underpinning genetics. And we've discovered that oats have a very complicated genome. They have 3 genomes, in fact. We knew that already. But when we look at the different varieties, we can see that they have lots of rearrangements between them. And this explains why quite often when you make a cross between 2 varieties, you get unexpected things happening because they're not totally compatible with each other.
What sort of traits are you going to be looking at?
Well, there are lots of important things that we need to improve for varieties for the future. The disease pressure on oats and other crops is changing all the time. So understanding and identifying new disease resistance genes that we can use in our breeding programs are very important. Also, improving the nutritional quality of oats. The other area that we are interested in, of course, is potential changes in the climate. Extreme weather is becoming more and more prevalent, so looking at drought tolerance and waterlogging tolerance and things like that.
How long do you think it'll take before we see some of these new aspects of oats in the field?
Well, we're breeding new varieties all the time, but it is a long-term process. We will have used some of these lines as parents in crosses a number of years ago, so it's likely that we will see products from this research in the next 5 years. And in addition to looking at in detail at the genome of these 33 different varieties, we've also looked in slightly less detail at over 9,000 different varieties of oats in a related study. So that gives us access to a vast genetic diversity that we can use in our breeding programs.
And how effective will precision breeding or gene editing be in this process, do you think?
Well, at the moment, we don't use gene editing at all. This is all our oat varieties are produced using conventional breeding. The methodologies for doing gene editing in oats are not as advanced as in other crops. And we know that there's a lot of genetic diversity out there that we can exploit without the need for gene editing at the moment.
Dr. Catherine Howarth from Aberystwyth University. Now, all week we're taking a closer look at the start of the farming process, seeds. Most farmers buy seeds of some kind, whether it's growing a crop for us to eat, or grass seed for pasture, or wildflower mixes for pollinators. But growing crops to produce those seeds that farmers plant is just as important. Rhys Jenkins is a fourth-generation farmer in Dyffryn in the Vale of Glamorgan in South Wales. 5 years ago, he decided to diversify into producing wildflower and grass seed mixes for a range of commercial clients. Today, the seed business is the biggest part of his farm. Marie-Claire Carey-Jones has been to meet Rhys.
We've got a array of everything here from Californian poppy to normal poppy. We've got some cornflower, we've got meadow buttercup. We've probably got a mix of somewhere between sort of 10 and 12 different wildflowers in there.
And the colours are fantastic. We've got purples and blues and yellows, oranges, some whites in there as well. And these wildflowers are a big part of the wild seeds that you're selling.
Yes, well, everything here that you can see, we've harvested ourselves on the farm and put into bespoke mixes. We're doing a lot more with grasses now, sort of to make your old meadows. And there's a lot of sort of wetland creation work where they want to enhance the biodiversity, I suppose, on these wetlands and add a few different grasses and wild grasses into the land.
And are farmers buying your grass seed mixes?
Yeah, we've got a lot of locals that anything from rye grasses to horse and pony paddocks. We grow a fair bit of clover as well, so they can go into the mixes. With the different varieties of plants growing, then you have different root structures and depths, so it's a really good thing for the soil. So here, this is the first process after the harvest and the seeds are dry. This is what we call the pre-cleaner. Here you've got 4 sets of sieves, top and bottom, and you try and take out as much of the produce that you're not looking to harvest. So we run it over the sieves once or twice there to get a cleaner sample before it then going off up to the processing plant.
So we've just walked into a shed and there's some black seed all over the floor. What's this?
So this is buckwheat. 90% of this will go in with an oilseed rape crop. You tend to have a problem with beetles and so on eating the rape. They'll actually eat this first, and then the oilseed rape then should, in the spring, be able to just get out the ground and keep going without any little bugs eating away at it. So here we've got some corn chamomile here that's ready to be sent off. So look at that, you smell that, that's really nice. The other shed here, we've got some oilseed rape that we harvested this year that hasn't been sent off yet.
Has it been a big learning curve moving from the cattle and the arable farming to producing the seed on a commercial scale?
Yes, it's a lot different with the wildflowers as well as they're very temperamental, especially around harvest time. You've sometimes got to check the one crop maybe 10, 15 times per day. So with the change in the heat and the wind and things like that, it can be detrimental to harvesting the seed at the right time. Some are sort of spring loaded, so they can actually, a bit of sun comes out for an hour or so, it can actually make the pods open in the seed. You could lose a lot on the floor. So timing is key.
But it's become an important part of your farm business.
Yes, definitely, yeah. The wildflower seeds, they've probably overtaken everything now, and we're probably 60-70% at least in the wildflowers. And then so the beef and the arable side then are taking a bit of a back step, really. Our cattle numbers have reduced massively. The money's just not there. I'd love for it not to be the case, but unfortunately we still have to do what pays the bills at the end of the day.
And the seed business has given you that financial security?
Yeah, it has. It's definitely more profitable on that side of things.
And all of this seed will have been grown on your farm here in the Vale of Glamorgan?
Yes. Said from the drying centre over there, where everything gets dried when it comes straight off the combine in the summer, to sorting and the cleaning next door, then in that bay, and then it all gets weighed and cleaned and sent off from there.
Rhys Jenkins from Wild Wales Seeds. As the number of bird flu cases across the country rises, DEFRA has announced all poultry across England now has to be housed. This comes into effect at midnight tonight. This means bird keepers across England must house all poultry and captive birds if they keep more than 50, or if they sell or give away eggs from their flocks. Bird flu is just one of the animal disease threats raised in a new report by the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee. Back in June, we reported on a National Audit Office report which looked into the country's preparedness in the case of a serious animal disease outbreak. That report concluded that the government is not prepared for a major disease outbreak in livestock, and that resources used to tackle bird flu and continuing cases of bluetongue have diverted effort away from preparing for future threats. Well, now the Cross-Party Public Accounts Committee, which says it holds the government to account on reports by the National Audit Office, has echoed those findings and is demanding action. Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown chairs the committee.
Where it's particularly not ready is either through a very serious national disease outbreak, for example, BSE or foot and mouth, or indeed there were 2 concurrent diseases at once in different parts of the country. And why are they not ready? Because they've been constantly firefighting on diseases like animal influenza, diseases like bluetongue, has taken up their sort of bandwidth, if you like, and therefore they haven't been ready at doing the strategic measures that they need to take. And what are those strategic efforts? They are things like looking at why the Port of Dover only surveys about 20% of its time. They're not doing the amount of surveying that they ought to be doing. We've been talking for years about introducing a cattle tracing unit. So there are a lot of strategic things that the government could do that they're not doing.
DEFRA would say that it's investing a massive amount of money, £2.8 billion, into bringing together surveillance and preparedness at the new National Biosecurity Centre at Weybridge.
That is a completely different issue. The Animal Testing Centre at Weybridge, what that does is when a disease is suspected in an animal, a sample will be rushed to Weybridge. If the disease is confirmed, then the whole strategy, how the nation deals with that disease, comes into place. So Weybridge is in a very parlous state, and it needs this major refurbishment programme, which is what that 2.8 billion is to go towards, not all the other measures. The problem with it is it's a 10-year programme, and the Biosecurity Centre needs to be open at all times.
The points that you mentioned at the beginning there is about prevention.
Exactly right. But they need to have a strategy of what they would do in the event of a major disease outbreak.
How then should the government address surveillance? Your report does outline that, we're very short of vets.
We need to have a proper veterinary workforce plan so that we know how many vets we need to train each year to deal with not only the day-to-day veterinary businesses, but also that enough vets are in place should we be unfortunate enough to be hit by one of these major diseases. And we could look at changing, as we say in our report, change the Veterinary Medicines Act so that some of the tasks that are undertaken by vets, for example, meat inspection, can be done by assistants rather than fully qualified vets.
We've reported many times on the rise of illegal meat imports, which can bring in animal diseases. What are your recommendations on tackling that at the border?
We know that the Port of Dover Health Authority only inspects about 20% of the time. We know, too, that there is a 55% increase in the amount of illegally imported food into this country. Now, whether those two are related, I'm not sure. But we could do far more in terms of educating the public of the dangers that they cause by bringing in illegal meat.
Part of the problem is lack of funding and lack of staff.
Well, I agree with that. And especially if you consider the actual damage and cost that it could involve in bringing in one of these diseases, I think the government needs to balance the two and make sure that Dover Port Authority and indeed other ports have got sufficient resources to be able to police this properly.
We've had the National Audit Office report. We've now had your report as well. How much difference will any of this make?
When we produce a report with recommendations, the government has 6 weeks in which to respond to our recommendations, and they accept over 90% of our recommendations. When that happens, our task is to make sure that they implement those recommendations. And if necessary, we call them back again to account for themselves as to why they've not implemented them, either in whole or in part.
MP Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown. In a statement, DEFRA said, "We're transforming biosecurity after years of neglect with over £1 billion investment in a new National Biosecurity Centre that will detect threats earlier, track diseases faster and respond more effectively to keep the country safe." And the Animal and Plant Health Agency said, "We welcome this report and will study the findings in detail so that the nation can remain at the forefront of surveillance, diagnostics, research and rapid response." That's all from us today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer is Rebecca Rooney. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.